Hey, just popping in for a quick second to remind you guys of the amazing AI opportunities that I have going on for you guys this month. Okay, so I am involved in a couple different bundles as well as summits, and they're all AI related. So I wanted to make sure you have all the information. Obviously, I have also put everything in the links below in the show notes. But in case you are confused about what they are, here's the deal. First of all, there is one that is very photographer specific, and that is from Sync. And they are going to be doing one that is the AI Summit for photographers. So I have contributed to that as well. And it's an amazing bundle. You guys can get it for free if you want to watch it live, or you can upgrade so that you can watch the replays. This is a fantastic one. You guys definitely want to get involved in this if you're a photographer. And then there's also the Her AI Summit, which is absolutely incredible because this is all about female energy in the AI space because we need more women in the AI and tech space. So the women who are putting this on are phenomenal. I'm super honored to be invited to be a part of this one as well. And there's a presentation for you guys to watch there as well. That link is below. You guys are going to love this. There's some really interesting out of the box ways that you probably haven't even thought to use AI. So definitely check that out. And then there's also a bundle. This is free. You just have to sign up with your email. It's called the Ease and Alignment AI bundle, and it is fantastic. So you're going to get a bunch of free resources in this one. And I highly recommend you check these out. Like I said, the links are below for you in the show notes. Let's get back to the show.
Welcome to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo, where we blend rock solid tips with a little bit of magic. I'm Renee Bowen, your host, life and business coach, and professional photographer at your service. We are all about getting creative, diving into your business, and playing with manifestation over here. So, are you ready to get inspired and have some fun? Let's dive in.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to Tried and True with the Dash of Woo. I'm your host, Renee Bowen. Today's conversation is one that I know many of you are going to resonate with because we're diving into the patterns that keep us stuck. So, if you have ever caught yourself thinking, why do I just keep doing this? Whether that's in your relationships, your business, or just sort of how you show up in the world, you're not alone. We all have these loops that we repeat, not because they're good for us, but because they're familiar. So, you've heard me talk about that a lot. And breaking free from them takes more than just willpower. It takes awareness, nervous system support, and a whole lot of self trust. My guest today is someone who has been leading that conversation around mental health for over a decade. Kati Morton is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a best-selling author, and a powerhouse voice in the mental health space with a YouTube channel that's reached millions. Her new book, Why Do I Keep Doing This?, is all about how our early conditioning and survival strategies show up in adulthood and how we can finally shift them. So, what I really love about Kati's work is that she blends the clinical with the intuitive. She helps us see not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it. And that opens the door for real change. This conversation is going to give you some insight into why you stay stuck and also how to begin finding your way out. And stick around till the end because after my chat with Kati, I'm going to be sharing some of my own takeaways and some practical tools that you can use right away to create movement if you're feeling stuck in your own life and business. So let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Kati Morton. Kati, thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited about this conversation because I talk about some of the things that we're going to talk about a lot, but you are like the pro in this field. I mean, you've been doing this work for well over a decade, reaching millions of people with videos and books and talks. And so I just kind of want to start really quickly at the beginning. What sort of drew you to focus so deeply on mental health, but specifically on the patterns that keep people stuck?
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me. In general, I was drawn to psychology and being a therapist because I love people. And for lack of a better explanation, I get really bored. Like I have worked a lot of jobs, and after a while, it's just kind of the same old shtick every day. But therapy's not like that because people are different and lives change and situations adjust and we have to manage. And I find that it's the most fulfilling work I've ever done. I also, as a kid, love being like the secret keeper, and like knowing the dirty deets, but also taking pride in the fact that I wouldn't tell anybody, you know?
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what started it. And then, especially when it gets into what we're going to talk about today, like patterns that keep us stuck, I honestly was drawn to this because I struggle. I think everybody struggles. And if any therapist or mental health professional tells you they don't, they're lying because we're human and we all have these propensities for behaving in certain ways. A lot of it comes from childhood. It can also come from other experiences we've had that we're drawing from. And I just really felt like it was something that I not only wanted to take people along on my journey, but I also just wanted to normalize the fact that we all have things we do that we wish we would stop doing.
Totally. Yeah. No, I was kind of the same way, right? I have a bachelor's in psychology. I never went through it. It was my intention to go and get that master's and to be a therapist. And then life just took a big detour. But that was sort of like, my own stuff too. I was the anxious kid. We didn't know it was that
We
back
didn't talk
then.
about it like we do now. Like when I grew up, I'm like, not everybody has like a racing heart for no reason.
Right.
What?
I just thought everybody was like that because how would I not? Like that's just our own experience, right? And I remember kind of having both of those feelings like, does everybody feel like this? And also, I feel like I might be the only one, right? And so I think part of me just like seeking fellow people who got it. And then in high school, we actually had a psychology class in high school, which was kind of progressive for me
We
back in
did
the
too.
day.
And it just started when I was in high school. Like
Yes.
I think I was one of the first classes to do it. And I was like, this is so cool.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
So same thing for me. And I was like, oh, I dig this. I think I could do this. So that's cool. I love hearing about how people are drawn to it because you have to love people to like really want to do what you do. And so, okay, you've said before that these patterns, of keeping people stuck, they're not random. They're survival strategies a lot of the times, right? And so like let's kind of dig into that a little bit. And maybe even if you could share a story or an example of like what that could look like, because I know you've seen and heard a lot and experienced a lot of it yourself.
Yeah, there's a ton of directions we can take this in. I'll just offer one that I talk about in my book specifically about like perfectionism. So I struggle a lot with people pleasing, perfectionism, trying to make myself smaller. There's a ton of things. We could get into well, all those things. But perfectionism in particular, I was able through my own therapy to connect it directly to my relationship with my dad. Okay. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through so you can see how your past can dictate your present and your future if we don't recognize it's happening. So, my dad growing up, great dad, loved being a father, but a big piece of what he thought his role was to earn money for the family, which meant he worked away from home a lot. And I thought in my little kid brain that he would be able to show up for my choir concert or for my sports event like my softball game or my soccer game or whatever, or be there for me more if I was better. Like if I did better, then that would mean he could show up because he keeps saying he's going to show up and then he ends up having to fly to like Alabama or, Alaska or wherever. So as a result of my dad working away from home and me not really understanding the why, and I don't know if it's because nobody talked to me about it or what. My family wasn't the most communicative, like most of ours. It's just like a newer thing. But I tried to make sense of it the best I could. And I thought it was because I wasn't a straight A student. I wasn't the first chair in band. I wasn't the getting all of the solos in choir. You try to chalk it up to these things. I wasn't on the varsity team yet. Like I thought that if I did that, then I would get him to be around me more. And because of that, I take that into, because I didn't recognize this, I took it into teenage years, up into college and my 20s, and even honestly into my early 30s of just thinking that if I didn't do something perfectly, then it wasn't good enough. And then that meant that I wasn't going to be worthy of love. I wasn't going to be worthy of attention. And so I know that might be like a simplistic explanation, but things like that are so common.
Yeah, they really, really are. And it's kind of interesting to me because I mean, that's one of the reasons why I went back and got certified in some things when I
Mhm.
started coaching entrepreneurs because they were coming to me for business coaching, like, oh, how did you do this? How are you making money? And I quickly realized, okay, there's nothing I could teach you that you're going to actually follow through on if you don't sort of like go back and fix this other thing. But I'm not a therapist, so I can't like, do that part with you. And a lot of my coaching clients do have therapists too. I will just mention that, which is great because I think that they can work really well together, right? Because like a
Yeah.
coach can challenge you in different ways, and I think that there's a beautiful dance that happens when I work with someone who has a therapist. I love, love, love it. But yeah, for me, that's a great example because that perfectionism, especially with female creatives, is legit a running theme, like in some way or another. And it's a great example too, I think, of like that was your experience with it, right? And that's how it sort of played out. But someone else could come to me and I even have the same thing, right? But it's because of a different reason. And
Mm-hmm.
when you dig deeper, right, that's just kind of like what it's about. It's like noticing where that's coming from. And this other piece of it is like being able to access that information without it continuing to stir it up and trigger you and keep you in this like fight or flight. So that's sort of like that piece that I think is so important. It's like, yeah, okay, that's where it comes from, but okay, now what? Right. And that's definitely something that you work with people in therapy, for.
Yeah, because knowing it's a huge, I feel like it's more than half the battle because we can't change what we don't understand, right? But that doesn't really get me through. It doesn't actually change it, but it allows me to see like, oh, okay, for me, it comes from this belief that like somehow perfectionism equals attention and love. And then essentially a lot of my therapy work has been like disproving that, like untangling that so I can see. It's like I always tell my patients and my viewers, I'm like, sometimes you have to check your facts, and
Mm-hmm.
thoughts are not facts. And having a thought multiple times for years and years doesn't make it a fact. And so you have to take a little time with yourself to be like, hey, like when I catch myself thinking, like right now I'm sitting on something I should turn in, but I keep reading it through. And I'm like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like you're not good enough? Is that what this is about? Are you afraid you're going to fail and then that's going to mean something else? You have to kind of challenge yourself and push yourself and be like, just do it.
Yeah.
80% is enough. One of my favorite quotes, and I mentioned it in my book, comes from the workbook, The Artist's Way, which
Yes.
I love. If you haven't done it, do it. It's
Oh my
amazing. It's
God,
a
for
lot of
sure.
work, but oh God, life changing. One of the quotes in there, she says, perfectionism I always thought was seeking out the best in things, but it was actually me looking for the worst. And
100%. Oh my God.
it's
Like I have
not,
chills. I know. And I've done The Artist Way and I've read it. And it's so interesting because my younger son, who just graduated from music college, and we had given him that book years ago, right? Probably when he was like 18. He wasn't ready yet.
yeah. 18. I mean,
And,
that's awesome to even have. I mean, I did it for the first time like 36, so
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, we were that. I'm married to an actor, a writer. Like I'm married to probably the most creative person on earth, and I think I'm kind of like somewhere half. I have one foot in, one foot out. Like I'm creative, but I'm
Same.
also really logical. And so we were very early adopters of all of that. So our kids kind of grew up around all of that, honestly, and we talked about it. But he in particular, he is a true artist, and now just graduating, and he's like in the what if period of his time, and it was funny because he called me and he was like, hey, can you send me that book? Because I think I'm ready
Oh,
for it now. And I was like, oh my God, he's asking for it. It's amazing. So, anyway, just like a
yeah.
little side note about the Artist Way, like if you haven't done it and you are an artist or a creative, anyone, like it's just a phenomenal, and it is a lot. You have to sort of devote some time to it. But all that to say, it's definitely so true that you're looking to prove what you believe, right? Like
Yep.
somewhere along the line, you believe that you aren't perfect or whatever. And so it's like that unconscious trigger of looking for proof of that because we're going to find proof of what we're looking for.
Yeah, and
And
I love that's a really important piece is like confirmation bias. And people don't talk enough about it, how think of like the fact that if you see that there's this new car out on the market and you see a commercial for it, then suddenly you see it everywhere. And you're like,
mhm,
why am I seeing this everywhere? Because you know of it now
mhm,
and it has more of a tie in your brain. And so instead of it driving by and you not even paying attention, now you're like, oh, look at that car. Oh, your brain loves patterns. It loves to look for things that prove
mhm,
things it already knows, right? Learning new information, challenging ourselves is hard and it's an unknown, and our brain doesn't like that. It's a little bit scary. We don't really know what's going to happen. And so our brain goes looking for the things that we quote unquote already know for more proof that it's true. And so in order to untangle these things, we have to like force our brain out
mhm,
and to be like, no, 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 I'm going to like I always tell my patients and my viewers alike, I'm like, you have to go out and be like, what is an alternative to this story, right? It's almost like I call it being a detective about it. We
Yep.
think of these, okay, this person, I love like crime. So I'm like, this person was murdered. They don't just automatically like, it was the boyfriend. They're like, it could be the boyfriend. It could also maybe be the neighbor. It could also, like, I need you to do that work. I need you to say, this could be happening because I'm no good, or this could be happening because this person is having a tough day. That's why they were kind of an asshole. This person acted this way. It had nothing to do with me. I need you to challenge and push your brain to come up with some other alternatives.
Totally. And when I learned about the reticular activating system, which is basically kind of what we're talking about here, is that filter in our brain, it sort of changed my life. I was like, oh, okay, that's what they mean by that. Because like it really is a system of our brain. Like you said, like it loves patterns and it's going to look for proof. And so if you believe that no one's going to pay these prices or whatever, because it's going to show up in a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
like not just like in your personal life, it'll show up in your business, especially if you were a solo business owner, like
Yes.
100%. It's going to show up. And that's for me, that's when my money stuff started showing up because I grew up, I was like, my parents were divorced when I was right 7 and a half, like seven basically. And I didn't really have a close relationship with my dad. So you can imagine that there was
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that went, but God bless my mom. Like she put me in therapy when I would think I was like 17.
My mom at 15 put me in. I'm
Yeah.
forever grateful.
Same. Because girl, she must have seen like this is an anxious child. And you know what I mean? Like I really didn't know. I didn't have the words for that then. And so a lot of that was played out. But all that to say, like I didn't really even know I had issues with like asking for a sale or have money stories or any of that stuff, like beliefs about money. I didn't even think about it really in those terms until I had to go out there and start asking people to pay me for work that I did. And that
Mm-hmm.
was like a whole different story. And that's when I realized I had some worth things tied to
Yeah.
like why my dad wasn't there and not paying child, all this stuff, right?
And
Like, so
being a woman and asking,
yes,
like, there's so many layers.
so many.
Yeah,
And
it's
so I had to
tricky.
sit with it too. And that was the piece of it is like, that's what the gift of therapy is that a good therapist will walk you through that and you will learn to sit with it and access it where it's not going to kill you. It's not going to, you know what I mean? Like there is that place. And so huge believer and proponent of therapy for so many reasons. But okay, so let's talk a little bit about in your new book. I love this whole topic. Why do I keep doing this? Is the name of the
Oh yeah,
book, which
here
I
it
mean,
is.
hello, it's perfect. Like, why do I keep doing this?
Mm-hmm.
You explain why familiar doesn't always mean healthy. And so, why do we cling to what we know, even when it's painful?
Because just it's a great segue. Because of what we're talking about, our brain loves patterns, it loves predictability. And I know you're like, so what does that mean? Why would it want unhealthy? Why would it want painful? Why would it want to put me in another hurtful or abusive situation? Because it already knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it knows what that means, how it's going to feel, that we can survive it because we already have. And it kind of like has walked through all the steps. So when we try to do something different, our brain's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know these steps. I don't know the outcome. That unknown, that new direction you want to take this is scary, right? It's not predictable. I can't already tell you and plan and prepare. It feels very unknown. And so because our brain loves patterns and that's not a pattern yet, it's a brand new thing, it would prefer you go back to what you already know, which is why breaking out of, I call it the blueprint, like when we're born and like you said, like not having your dad around, like these are ways that our blueprint is being drawn. And each of us has strengths in our blueprint and weaknesses in our blueprint. But in order to redraw it, we have to take a gamble. I'm going to make this room this big. Do I know if it really needs to be that big? I don't, but I'm going to do it because I know that I can't go back to this other way. I have to erase that and I have to redraw, right? And so we're just taking chances. And so that's really why new and novel, as healthy and as wonderful and as hopeful as it can feel terrifying and be the hardest thing for you to do. It's almost like a good example for me is that I really hate conflict. Surprise, surprise. And so when I was having an issue with my husband, and we've been together, God, for like, I don't know, 16, 17 years. And instead of leaning in and telling him, like, hey, what you said really hurt my feelings, or I wish you would have addressed me this way or that way, I like to run away.
Oh,
I'm like,
same.
I'm like, my silence will speak volumes. It's
Peace
kind of
out.
like,
Me too.
yeah, it's like kind of a passive aggressive, but also just like, I don't know how to communicate my needs. And I've been in therapy since I was 15. I'm
Uh-huh.
41. Like, I should get my shit together, right? I'm also a therapist. But just because we know better doesn't mean we always do better. But my therapist had told me when you sense that runaway, that pull out or puffer fishing, like that's what I call it, like stick spines out. She goes, I want you to do something really uncomfortable. I want you to do opposite action. I want you to lean in to him and I want you to say, hey, that hurt my feelings. And I don't really know how to deal with it. She's like, you don't have to have a resolution. You don't have to have an answer. Lean in. Now, when I tell you, for me to talk to him, I love my husband. He's a great man. I was so nervous. I'm like walking up to him in his office. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this. We can do this. We can do this. We can say, hey, the way you said that just hurt my feelings. He was like, oh my God, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. And then he hugged me, kissed me. Okay, I'll be better. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Boom. In a matter of, I would have like ruminated on that for days,
Hmm.
resolved in a few seconds. But to say that it wasn't hard and that it wasn't against every fiber of my being would be a lie. And so when you're making difficult changes, just know that that discomfort, that the anxiety, that the sweaty palms and the shaky voice is all part of the process and that you'll get better and it will feel more comfortable because just like we said, our brain loves patterns. It loves to know how things turn out. So now my brain's like, oh, I can say stuff to him and it's not terrible.
Exactly.
I just opened up a whole new part of my blueprint.
Yeah, and you're creating all those new neural pathways that we know
Yes.
actually is a thing with the
Right.
neuroscience. Like every time you do that, that groove will get deeper, and then you'll
Yeah.
get to it'll become more of that pattern and of a familiar feeling that, but in a good way this time. And so you're literally rewiring your brain, which is so fun and awesome that we can do that. But it's so interesting because I have the same thing. Like it took me again, like I've been in therapy for so long. I have a degree in it, like I believe in it. And yet it's like someone is cutting me open without anesthesia for me to actually say those words. It was like, what the heck is going on here? And it doesn't
Yeah.
take a rocket scientist to figure out why I would have those issues. I mean, like it's pretty clear on paper, but you get so close to it. Everything is like right here. When you're in that fight or flight, it's really hard to go, oh, okay, there's something else going on here. And I am safe. I am
Yeah.
safe
Well,
in this place.
and fight or flight, it helps me always know neuroscience a little bit to get a little nerdy with it that like when our fight flight is triggered, that means our amygdala is firing, our limbic system shooting messages. And what that does is it prioritizes safety
Mm-hmm.
and essentially security for us. And here's the big kicker, there's no prefrontal cortex action. It takes it offline. And that's important to know because your prefrontal cortex is organized thought, planning and preparation, and also language, a lot
Yeah.
of organized language. So, of course, it's like it's hard for me to communicate. My mind goes blank when I go to talk about something I'm stressed about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't put in the steps to make that happen. It's hard. And
Yeah.
so, your brain's kind of fighting against you a little
I
bit.
always say when that happens, all the blood will rush to your limbs. So you get fast, but you get
Yep.
dumb because it literally
It drains it out of everything else.
you're not thinking in a logical, conscious way. You are literally just running on your programming at that point.
Yes.
And if you got some programming, which all of us do, it just depends on like what level of it is, right? Like, so big T or little t. And
Yeah.
so it can be a lot, but I want to touch on this really quickly before we kind of go further on that, because what I think is really very interesting, because you had said before about how anything that is new or novelty, right, is going to trigger those responses in us. And I just think it's so funny. It's like a cruel joke, I think, that so many of us creatives have these spicy neurodivergent brains and we crave the new. We want something new. We have like 50 million ideas
Yep.
and we want to follow them and we have like, it's exciting. And then we start doing it. We're like, oh crap. I do not think this is for me. So like, I want to kind of like dig into your therapist brain on that a little bit. Like, so, and also because I mean, I kind of approach it too from like the metaphysical, where it's like, okay, I really believe that if you were drawn to something, it's meant for you, and your higher self is like sort of popping in and saying, okay, no, this is good for you, and that there are no mistakes, right? Like, okay, if you're drawn to it, there's a reason why, and all of those triggers contain some gold for you if you're willing to look at it. But I want to kind of hear your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, especially my ADHD patients over the years, like the amount
Yeah.
of things they'll purchase in like a weekend. They're like, I decided I'm gonna do knitting, and I bought like
Yes.
all of this stuff, and I have all these plans, and blah blah blah, and then they like do it for a week, and they're like, I decided I hate it.
Mhm.
Totally fair. I think there's a couple of things here. First of all, we have to recognize our impulsivity. Everybody has different amounts, different things that cause it. One of the best things we can all do, period, bar none, is check in with yourself before you make any major decisions, you make any major purchases, you decide your next move. It doesn't mean, like, to your point, we can't get excited, we can't journal a little bit about this new idea and this thing we want to do and what it would take. That's all great. That's like giving yourself time to process, because what usually ends up happening, the reason I said check in with yourself, is I always talk about HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. It's a great
Mm.
resilience check in. How have I eaten in the last 3 to 4 hours? How did I sleep last night? Have I connected with someone that I really feel like gets me? Am I angry about something I haven't communicated? Often those are lingering in the back and we don't even recognize
Yeah.
it. Check in with that before you start taking a leap. Like you said, there's nothing wrong with having flights of ideas and you're so excited and I want to try this new thing. I want to take up knitting, but we don't have to spend $400 on Amazon in one night to do this thing. Let's check in. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. How are you doing? Okay, maybe we journal a little bit about, that's what I used to tell one of my ADHD patients. By the time she'd journal about what it was going to take, she'd already hate it a lot of times. And so that would save her from like jumping in. So there's that piece. But then there's also this, I call it like the compassionate piece, where we have to be like, but that child us, that impulsive, excited, is beautiful. And you should care for that and cultivate that. But again, that doesn't mean we have to make huge financial decisions, change our business plan and pivot again, or communicate this to anybody. I think it's enjoying that part of ourselves. Like when you journal about this, I don't want you to shame or blame. I want you to be
Right.
like, I'm so excited. This is so beautiful. I can imagine myself making these quilts that I will put on the wall and whatever. I'm going to make music. It's going to be amazing. Let yourself go down the path while just checking in. Because when we're hungry, angry, and lonely, tired, we're way more impulsive. We're way more apt to make decisions that aren't based in our best interest. Our prefrontal cortex might not be online, right? The blood will be in our limbs. We're not necessarily, who knows, right? So those are just kind of the things I think of when I think of like neurodivergence, and the beautiful piece of that that creates amazing art. Because I don't want to
Yeah.
shut down that pipeline, but you do want to just be a little bit more intentional, which I know is hard
Yeah.
because we get excited and we want to make moves.
For sure. I see it in lots of different ways inside of my coaching and just in my own house. I like to say, like, there's basically neurodiversity soup in my house, like somebody's got autism or ADHD or both or whatever. And so, like, it's just a lot
Yeah.
of checking in. I mean, that's honestly, I don't think I've heard it as that acronym before, but which I love. And I remember because my oldest has autism, and it was probably one of his therapists that was talking about that with us, with him, when we were trying to like kind of like deal with some behaviors when he was really little. And I remember thinking, I think we definitely need to be using that more
We all
than
do.
him.
The things I do in the heat of the moment or when I'm frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Like my husband wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until he was in his 40s. And so I look back now, I'm in my 50s and he is too. And we were talking about this the other day. It was really funny because we were having a good laugh about it now. But it's so crazy to us to like think about those earlier days, like even just like with us being new parents and having three kids under the age of two, and him being an actor, like just having this really wild life. I was like, can you imagine what people aren't like the outside looking in? We must have looked like absolute chaos. Like, and even our adult kids will talk about this now. They're like, yeah, we used to take these long, long road trips. Like, we love a good road trip in our minivan. And they loved it. They still talk about how they loved it, but like it was chaos. Like it was absolute like insanity. And it wasn't until our kids got older and they were in our teenage years. And I think that, we were sort of like, everything was just getting not as crazy, let's just say. Not, crazy is not the right word, but chaotic. Okay.
Yeah.
that we were all starting to notice, I don't think other people have families like this. Like, I don't think, like, I think it's just us.
The
I think
dust
we're just
settles and you're
wild.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
huh.
And my daughter says that now. She's like in her grad program and she's like, yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot in our house. And I was like, I know. And I didn't realize it because I was in it. And now that I look back, I'm like, yeah, there was just a lot going on at all times. Like someone was always in that place of like a little bit of dysregulation, I think, And so learning how to regulate yourself, that's sort of a good segue into this conversation, I think, because that all goes hand in hand with what we're talking about and being stuck and sort of like breaking out of that blueprint. So I talk a lot about nervous system regulation just in general and on this show and my coaching, just in my life. How do our bodies play into patterns of keeping us stuck as well?
That's a great question. The truth is, they have a huge role because, like I talked about going to talk to my husband when I'm like, I need to say something and I don't, like, my palms get sweaty. I feel shaky. Like, you're talking about anxiety. Like, we can feel not only mentally could our thoughts feel like they're racing or feel scrambled, but our body experiences the same upset and dysregulation, right? Because they're connected. I hate when people are like, it's, mental health or physical health. I'm like, they are part of the
Yeah.
same unit. I don't know why we're having this conversation. And so just recognizing how your body responds can be really, really powerful because there are a ton of different kind of really basic things, I guess, you can do, but kind of like you're like calming your body down. They can call them grounding techniques. You can call them just neuroscience backed behavior techniques. But there are two that I find to be the most effective. Number one is temperature change. So if you find yourself feeling incredibly overwhelmed, your body is responding to, I don't know, let's say your boss gave you some feedback you weren't prepared to hear, and you're having you don't want to cry at work, you don't want to yell. So we sit with it, and maybe tears come without us even wanting them. And we're like, why am I freaking out? And you're sweating a lot, and you're like, oh my God, oh my God. Go and get, like, maybe keep a water bottle in the freezer at work if you can. You grab that water bottle and you put it on the back of your neck. Cold is, when I say temperature change, I mean bring cold into the
Mm-hmm.
picture. Hot, I guess if you're in a really cold area, hot tea could work. But changing the temperature of your body, putting it on your wrists, the back of your neck, your temples, triggers our vagus nerve, which is the longest cranial nerve in our body. And it essentially tells your nervous system, we're going to be okay. Don't worry. It'll calm you down. It'll take you from what I would say like a 10 to like a 7. So it
Mm-hmm.
feels a little bit more manageable. That's like a fave, patients, viewers alike. The second one, and one that I recently discovered probably a few months ago, is I don't even know what I would call it. I just call it like brain reset, but it's making your brain do something odd. Like, let's say you're maxed out again at work, same situation. Your boss gave you feedback. I want you, if you write with your left hand, I want you to write with your right hand for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or I want you to, and this might sound a little weird if you have a little privacy in your office, I want you to walk backwards. I know this sounds really I want you to tap your head and rub your stomach. Because what that does is that autopilot we kind of talked about, like how your brain loves those patterns and it wants to go right into the old way that we used to communicate, the old way we used to engage. It forces it out of that. It makes it think.
Yep.
It pulls us into the prefrontal cortex. I have to think about this. I have to plan this. I have to, like, what am I doing? Even counting backwards, skipping a number, like, 10 to 8 to 6. Like, it sounds so simple, but it really tricks your brain and like snaps it out of that. And so those are just a couple of things. I mean, we could talk grounding techniques too.
Yeah, there's so many,
There's a
truly.
zillion. One that my patients always have loved over the years is counting colors, is what we call it.
Mm-hmm.
So in your room, look
Yep.
around, like how many things are brown, how many things are blue,
Yep.
and that just brings you back into the present and stops you essentially from freaking out.
That's a really good tactic that I've used, that I've taught my kids to use with their anxiety to break out of a panic attack. Because when you're in that place, it's really hard. Like, it's hard to snap out of, especially if you're new to panic attacks. Like, now I'm like a seasoned panic attacker. Like, you know what I mean? Now I'm like, oh, it's just a panic attack. I know how to get myself out of it. But when I started having like the first panic attack I ever had, it woke me out of a dead sleep. I was in college and I thought I was dying. And, straight to the emergency room. That it's harder to like break out. So a couple of my kids have really bad anxiety too. And so that's one of the things that I taught them early on that really, really works. Like, I want you to today just see how many purple things you can find just in
Mhm.
general,
Yeah.
and I'm a counter. Like, that's sort of like my little OCD thing that I've got, is like I count
Yeah.
everything. And I mean, like unconsciously, I don't notice that I'm doing, which is really hilarious because I could barely pass algebra. Like it's so funny. I'm like, why am I not a math wizard? Because like literally I count everything just unconsciously and I count by twos and it's just like an anxiety thing. Wasn't until college that I learned, oh, this is one of the OCDs.
Oh, yeah, I know. I used to spell everything before I'd say it. And my therapist was like, people don't do that.
I was like, what do you mean people don't count on their teeth? What are you
I know.
talking about? You don't sing with your teeth like in count in twos? And people were like, what are you
Uh-huh. How are you functioning right now? And you're like, I'm not.
Yeah, that's actually how I'm functioning, just so you know.
Right?
That's a
Keeping
little thing
things
that I do. Yeah,
just take the
exactly.
edge off.
But yeah, no, I love those tips because they're simple, they're easy. The temperature change for sure. Yeah, 100% have used that a lot. So those are good little
Yeah, and I
hacks.
tell people if you do struggle with panic attacks or feel dissociation,
Yeah.
keep those, those little break packs that turn to ice for like
Yes.
first aid kits. You can buy them in bulk on Amazon. I know you might not want like a huge amount, but having 10 or so, like I have one
Hmm.
in the car, or I have one in my purse, I have one at work in my desk, like that might save you. So,
Yeah.
keep those on hand too.
Yeah. Good tip. I love those. That's awesome. I have to go Amazon, here I come. Um, okay, so you've built a really unique space just in general where you merge the clinical side of therapy and the science-based, data with a little bit more of an intuitive awareness, which I love. And I'm just interested to like hear your perspective on that, why you think that combination is important in healing.
When before we started filming, I was like, I love your podcast. And I love a little bit of woo because I am kind of woo woo. And I always use that term too
Yeah.
with my audience. I'm like, I know this is a little woo woo, but hang with me. And the truth about it is, first of all, I've always felt I'm a very intuitive person. And people can think or judge whatever they want to think or judge. But I mean, I have a ton of different examples of like deja vu that came to
Yeah.
fruition and was a thing. And my grandma had it too. And I feel like there's kind of this like, we do know now through new neurological research that we have more than our five senses. I know we talk about the sixth sense,
Hmm.
but I don't know if you've heard more recently, they're thinking we have like senses in the like 20s or 30s
Yeah.
of them. And so there's a lot of different things that I don't feel like everyone's tapped into. That's no judgment, like we should be tapped into
Sure.
all of them. But I do feel like we need to use all of the resources we have available to help us be better and feel better and be more in tune with our world. I think it's really easy these days to disconnect and to feel like, we're alone in something, that we don't have any idea how we're feeling or thinking. And I'm always encouraging people to tap in. And I think that comes along with a little bit of that woo woo. Like, if you have an intuition that a situation is bad, get out of that situation. If you
Mhm.
have a little feeling that, like, maybe I should just journal about this, journal about this. Like, my specialty is in eating disorders. That's where I started.
Mm.
And a lot of what I used to run this group called the Body and Soul Group, and a lot of what I was trying to help the women in the clinic I worked at recreate was the connection between you and your body. And like your body sends signals. We talked about how your body feels when you start to feel anxious. A lot of people that are listening might have been like, oh my God, that was anxiety. Oh, that makes sense. I didn't even connect
Right.
it. I think if we don't use all the things we have, I know this is like a long winded answer, but like we need to use all our resources so that we can be not only more in tune with ourselves, but then with our world. And I feel like it makes things just ever so slightly easier. And I feel like then we're tapped into more information so we can make a better and more informed decision, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, 100%. And do you think that I feel like, I always tell my coaching students, like, this is like another tool in your self awareness tool belt, right? Like, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything bad that comes from, yeah, I think you can be a little too self aware. Like, I'm probably that. But, it can lead you down that path. It can help open these doors for you where you're like, oh, okay, without judgment, ideally,
Mhm.
above, oh, that's interesting. So, one of the things that I will do a lot and I will work with my students with as well. And when you notice these things, instead of like immediately going to that, "Ah, why are you doing that? That sucks," like you said, just go, oh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
I wonder what that's about, and like just sort of like try and repattern some of that. But like, I feel like learning to trust yourself and learning to trust your intuition, first of all, as women, I feel like we all sort of like have an innate knowing. Some people, like you said before, like may have a deeper sense of that than others, but I really do feel like it's a part of us. And so learning how to like trust that is part of this self-awareness tool, because so many times we have been taught to not trust that inner
Yeah, to
voice,
override
especially
it.
as women. Like,
Yeah.
yes, override it. That's a great word because, for one logical reason or another, it doesn't make sense. But like, we can all find examples of that knowing. I 100% have had like some really wild moments. And even, one of the things that sticks out, it's just the funniest thing. I always tell this story. My mom, I come from a long line of very, I believe, very intuitive women. I'm from the South. My whole family is very Catholic. So this is not, it's not like they are like doing Wiccan circles or anything like that. Okay. Like, let me just set the scene here.
Yeah.
My mom is like, she goes to church every Sunday. Okay. And when I got pregnant with the twins, so I had already had my older son and he was very young and we weren't really planning on having kids that right back to back, but it just sort of happened. And so the morning of my ultrasound, I had taken a test. I knew I was pregnant and I was going to get an ultrasound because I wanted to see how far along I was and I wanted to have a water birth this next time and all this stuff. So I was going to like a birthing center here in LA. And so I was on the phone with my mom talking as I do all the time. She's like my BFF. And just in the middle of this conversation, like we weren't even like talking. She's like, "Do you have a feeling that maybe this is twins?" And I was like, "No. Why would you say that to me?"
Why
Like,
would you
first of
put
all,
that? I know. We have a young baby already.
I'm like, "Why? Why? He's not even two. Why would you say that to me?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't know. I just have this feeling." And right then I knew. I'm like, "Well, it's twins,"
It's
because my
twins.
mom doesn't just say stuff like that. Like when it's very interesting. So yeah, sure enough, we're doing and I tell this to my husband and he's like, ha 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 ha. He sort of like laughs it off. I'm like, "No, you don't get it. Like, I think that this is a thing." And
Yeah.
yep, sure enough, they're doing the ultrasound and the doctor turns to us and goes, "Are there twins in your family?" And my husband was just like, "Are you freaking kidding me right now?" So stuff like that. It's like, there are things that you can't explain or you don't want to explain or whatever. And I have a lot of like synchronicities and deja vus. And I love like the whole Carl Jung thing with synchronicity too on a side note.
Yes.
But
Yes.
anyway, all that to say, I feel like when you embrace it and you sort of like lean into that a little bit, it can lead you to some really cool introspective places, I think. So I would love for you to share your own, like you said, you are a little woo, right? Like, so what are some personal practices or mindset things that you do that help you when you feel like you're slipping into old patterns?
So first of all, like we talked about, the biggest piece is recognizing what those patterns are, because sometimes I swear to God, I'll run into things that are like just the other day, we had a task rabbit come to our house and they did a terrible job. And I felt really bad about giving them not 5 stars. And I know you might be like, Katie, where is this going? But that's a pattern of mine where it's like people pleasing behavior, where
Mm-hmm.
like I feel bad acknowledging that they did a bad job. I don't know why that is. I don't want to hurt their feelings. This guy kind of looked grandpa-ish. And I was like, oh, he kind of reminds me of my papa. And that makes me kind of
Mm-hmm.
sad. What? Get like it is these are not the same thing, and I do stuff like that. And so I say that to say that like when we're trying to recognize these patterns, do it with curiosity. I am still discovering new ways that I act that I'm like, oh my God, this is everywhere in my life. I'm annoyed. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
right? So with curiosity, not judgment. And when I feel it happening, the best thing, again, hold on to that curiosity, because the best thing that I can do for myself, and maybe it's just because I'm a therapist, but I've always been a big journaler or
Yeah.
diary
Me
keeper.
too.
Now, not everybody likes to write. You can do video diaries. You can just talk to yourself while you walk along or take some time and take a bath and just think on it. It doesn't have to be writing, but the one thing that I will tell you, and I'm sure any therapist would say this, you have all the answers. I know you don't think you do, but you have them all. Talking about that intuitive nature, we know ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know yourself really well. We just often have certain parts that are exiled. I don't like that about me. It doesn't exist. If I pretend it doesn't exist, it's not there. But when we have this pull, this internal pull, we're like, oh my God, I'm wanting to pull away again and be passive aggressive. Or, oh my God, I'm dating the same type of person again. Or, oh my God, I'm making the same mistake in business. Why am I here again? Ugh. And we can have this, like, and we jump to that judgment, like you'd said, like,
Mm-hmm.
ugh, why am I doing this? When you feel that, instead of jumping to the judgment, think, what's going on? Why do I think I'm doing this? Add with the curiosity. Like, for example, when I want to pull away instead of communicate. I'm like, what am I afraid is going to happen if I do communicate?
Mm-hmm.
What, that he won't be able to meet my needs? Then what would that mean? And in therapy we call this downward arrow questioning. It's a cognitive behavioral tool, and it's essentially of the like, if so, then what? So like, if I am not good at my job, then what? Well,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll be poor, I'll lose my job, it's gonna be terrible, they're gonna fire me. Okay, so they fire you, then what? Well, then I have to go looking for another job. And I know this sounds really simple and you're like, these are easy questions to answer. It's going to get hard
Yeah.
real quick. About five, six, maybe seven questions in, you start running into things like, because I'm not good enough, or
Mm-hmm.
because I don't deserve to be happy, or whatever. And in this process, you learn the why behind that tug, right? For me, it gets down to like, I have to hustle to earn my worth. Like there's something about like I'm not worthy, right? If I know that, then, and you're like, okay, well now I just have this like horrible realization. Well, but that tells you what you need to work on. So then my work has to be in self-worth, which means, and this is going to be annoying to some people, but that means for me, it's annoying to me. I have to talk more kindly to myself, and I have to recognize when I don't, or when I allow other people to not.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's, I know that's again like a simplistic example, but it's putting in that work with yourself where like, instead of jumping to the judge, let's jump to curiosity. Be a detective. Ask yourself a bunch of questions. I pose so many questions in my journal about like, why did I say it that way? Why am I so bent out of shape about this? This seems like an overreaction. Interesting, because overreactions aren't bad. They're little indicators that like
Mm-hmm.
there's more going on. Why did I find that comment so hurtful? Huh, maybe because I kind of believe it myself, right? So
Yep.
it's just being a little more curious about stuff instead of jumping to judge, and letting your intuition guide the way in that. Like, maybe I need to take a little beat on this. Maybe I am a little more emotional today. Again, it's just like listening to your body, listening to how you
Yeah.
feel instead of disconnecting.
Yeah, that's the good piece of it right there is if you can manage to do that and just get curious and investigate as opposed to just checking out, that's a huge win. Just
Yeah.
that right there. So, give yourself some grace too in
Yeah,
that
and avoidance
process.
is very normal too. Like if
Yeah.
you're like, wow, I just tapped out and didn't even
Yeah.
realize.
Sometimes you need to.
Yes, it can be too much, right?
Mhm.
We all have our own capacity depending on the day, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. How are we doing?
Right?
We
Yeah.
might want to check out, and I get it, but just promise yourself that you'll try to hold on for 10 more seconds next time.
Yeah, for sure. I call it the anxiety highway. Like it's similar to what you were talking about as far as like, well, okay, if that happens, then what? And okay, if that happens, then what? That's one of my practices for dealing with anxiety. Because like for me, and I didn't learn this until years of therapy, and I was probably in my 30s. And I do believe like my hormones had a lot to do with my anxiety, just as a side note. But I always just ran from it, right? Like because when it's big and it's scary, you don't want it to happen. And then with like panic attacks, you really don't want that to happen because like, I've got 3 kids. Like what happens if I have a panic attack in the middle of this store? Like I won't be able, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of lived with like a lot of that for a while. And then I'm pretty good about just like shutting things off. Like when I want to
Compartmentalizing.
yes, when I want to compartmentalize, you are dead to me. Like literally I can be like, and we're done. But I mean, it'll come back. But
Yep.
in the moment, I'm able to do that. Right. So like, again, what I sort of like had to realize is that if I just turn around and look at it, this big scary monster of anxiety, if I just look at it and I go, okay, well, what would happen if that happened? What would happen if I had a panic attack right here in the store? Well, people would maybe think I was crazy. And then you know what I mean? Like I would allow myself to like go down that anxiety highway because really at the end of the day, there's always a solution. There's always like something, it's not as bad as I am or my anxiety is creating it to be at that moment. And so anyway, if anyone,
No, I love that. We,
is
I,
thinking about that, it
yeah,
helps.
it's awesome that you've created that though, because in CBT we call that like the playing it out.
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario? And you always go to worst case first because your brain already wants to do that. So play it
Mm-hmm.
out. You said, what's the worst that can happen?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the best case rose colored glasses? Probably not, not
Yes.
very likely. And then what's the most likely? And it sounds silly, but that practice helps you see like, oh, I guess I'd be okay.
Yeah.
And that's a big shift versus, oh my God, I'm freaking out. Because then if you worry about having a panic attack, that makes it more likely that you will, which
Oh
is like
yeah.
such the annoying piece of anxiety. It's like, so yeah.
Totally. Okay, I could talk about this stuff with you like all day. We could probably have like a 3-hour podcast, but let's go ahead and wrap up because we've already talked about so many good things. You've really, really outlined some really helpful tips too for the listeners. But I really do want to chat just briefly about your book. Like, let us know, it is about what we have been talking about, but kind of give us a little bit more insight about the book, when it's coming. I'll list all of this in the show notes, and then how people can like find you and all of that.
Yeah, so my book, Why Do I Keep Doing This, is coming out December 9th. And it's honestly all about my journey with control or the illusion of control. So
Mm.
I walk you through my own history of being in therapy since I was 15 and what I've learned and what I'm still learning. I think the difference of this book from my other books is that it's kind of a come along with me type of book versus a let me teach you this.
Mm.
And there are some teaching moments, like some of the stuff I shared today, I share in the book, and there's other tidbits at the end of each chapter to get you thinking, get you asking yourself those questions. But it's probably my most personal book, and I'm very excited. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your local bookstore, wherever books are sold. It's called Why Do I Keep Doing This? It's very pretty, and I'm excited about her
It's so
to put her
cute.
into the world. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for being here. Again, like I know that this is going to be a really, really helpful conversation, and the book sounds amazing. So I will definitely put that info for people so that they can maybe pre-order and
Yeah, pre-orders really help authors. It tells us not only where
yeah,
to do book tours and stuff, but also that's how people become bestsellers.
yeah, absolutely. All right, awesome.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, wow, right? That was a really awesome, powerful conversation with Katie. I want to leave you with a few of my own takeaways as well, and some tools that you can use right now if you're feeling stuck. So first, that awareness is everything, right? Instead of beating yourself up or repeating the same loop, just notice it. Awareness without judgment is the very first step towards change. Second, get really curious about the underneath. Okay. So ask yourself what she was talking about. What is this behavior doing for me? What is this about? What safety or comfort is it giving me? And when you name the need, you open the door to finding healthier ways to meet it. Third, support your nervous system. When you're stuck, it's usually because your body doesn't feel safe enough either to try something new. So take a few deep breaths, box breathing, walk outside, putting your hand over your heart, reminding yourself that you're okay, all is well. All of these little small resets can shift everything. She had some really good tips for us in this episode. And fourth, focus on a micro shift. Okay. So instead of trying to overhaul your entire life in one day, which is what we tend to want to do, pick one small action that feels aligned and doable today. So tiny steps really compound over time, and they build trust with yourself over time. And that's really the final point. It's about that self-trust, not self-force. Okay. The more you can show your body and your mind that you're safe, that you're capable, and that you don't have to repeat the same old patterns, the easier it will become to step into a new one. So if you're listening right now and you're in that stuck place, take a breath, take one small step, and remind yourself that you're not broken. There's nothing wrong here. You're just running an old program, and you have the power to write a new one. And if you are a creative business owner and you want someone to help you walk through that, reach out. I do have a couple spots open for one-on-one coaching at the moment. Definitely check out Katie's book. All of the info is in the show notes. I know y'all are going to get a lot out of this episode, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Hit me up on Instagram at Renee Bowen if you have that feedback for me, or you can go ahead and leave us a review or a rating. Those are so appreciated. You can do that at ratethispodcast.com/Renee Bowen. Okay, you guys have a great rest of your week. Love you. Bye.